This episode is sponsored by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain it to you really quickly. To start off, it's 100% free, and there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it could be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more platforms. In fact, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. If you're interested, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hey, lovely people. Welcome back to the Unraveling the World podcast.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about a rather serious matter that is impacting our society greatly.
More specifically, we'll be talking about the hate crimes committed against the Asian community. And if you feel uncomfortable, we advise you to pause here. We're going to be talking about specific events, statistics, and what you can do to help aid this issue.
On our Instagram posts and in our bio, we attached several links and resources, so be sure to educate yourself about it. If you don't know our username or our it's at Unraveling the World Podcast.
To start off, I think it'll be good if we go around and just talk about some of the things that we witnessed, observed, or just read online.
Yeah, so I guess I can start the conversation off. I've never really personally or firsthand experienced any hate for racism or Asian hate, but I know that several of my friends and relatives have. So I just wanted to bring up one story or something that one of my friends has deal with. So basically they put it on their Instagram story, and I reached out to them to make sure that they were safe and their family was safe, because that's just the proper thing to do, especially if someone's putting this or on their story. I think it's important to reach out. So I basically asked them, and they said that their mom went to the grocery store and she was just buying groceries, getting food, just normal day stuff. And a woman, went up to her and said, "Go back to your country," said a bunch of mean slurs and said, "You don't belong here." I think even said the C slur, and just was completely rude. And her mom did fight. Well, she said, she basically fought. She stood up for herself, and she told the lady to back off, like, "I'm just minding my own business." And police were involved. Thank God her mom wasn't physically harmed, but I have read all over the news and on headlines where people were physically hurt. And I just wanted to bring awareness because this has even happened to relatives, and it's kind of scary, especially if it happens to someone you know. I feel like that's when it hits you that, oh my God, this is real. And if someone else wants to share a story or something that has happened, I think it's important to talk about it.
Yeah, so my best friend, she lived in North Carolina, and see, there are not many people of color. So we were both people of color, the only people of color in our school, actually. And so oftentimes, I would face the racism she was facing, and then that's a bad way to word it, sorry. I would physically view, I would hear everything that people were saying to her, and it was horrifying. They would call her the C slur, make fun of her food, her clothing, her eyes, specifically her eyes. They would criticize her for being smarter, and they would even they would attempt to take advantage of her many times. And it's the worst part about it was that once I moved, she said it only got worse, because when two people of color both facing similar struggles, when they're together, see, you have someone with you, you have someone to share this racism you're facing, and you can share your struggles. But once I moved, she just cried about it for hours, and she just talked to me about how much she despised and hated life just because of her school. And she even told me about her mother, she told me that her mother faces so much racism, and her little sisters, her little sisters recently faced, I don't know, I think someone called her the C slur. And so she was crying to me about it because she was like, "Oh, why do they have to face it? Why can't I just be the one to do this? Why does my mom have to go through this?" And it's actually a lot. It's not like simple name calling. It's more than that. And so it's if it was it's not even just name calling is not okay, but it's more than that, you know? Like they truly they truly hurt her. And another thing is how her father lives in Vegas. So I told her, "Why don't you move to Vegas? Maybe it'll be better there." And she said, "I tried. I only moved because of the amount of racism I'm facing." And she talked about how it was way worse there, and the fact she had to pick between North Carolina and Vegas just because of racism. Like, she had to pick which place was the least racist, which is just not cool at all. You should be able to live life comfortably, you know?
Yeah, the fact that I just can't imagine like having to pick between having the choice between two like places to live in, and to pick the one which is less racist because you're scared you'll lose your life in either.
Exactly.
And like the fact, like, it's so unsettling. And the fact that like young children are facing this just just shows how bad society has gotten, like, especially in this issue. Like, I can't even wrap my head around it. It's just that bad. And I think like hate against Asian Americans has only spiked since the beginning of the pandemic, you know. And I was reading on NBC, like, Asian Americans, especially like during this time, you know how sometimes you'll be just doing something and you'll feel like you're just like embarrassed, or like you'll feel like everyone's eyes are like on you.
Yeah.
And I was on NBC. So basically they got like many people's like perspectives, and more specifically like Asian Americans perspectives, and how they've been handling everything. And most of them, like, a common thing that I found between in all the things that they said was like the fact that they said that throughout this whole pandemic, each time they step outside their house, first of all, they're always like scared that they'll lose their life. And also the fact that like they felt like everyone's eyes, even though it might not be, everyone's eyes have been on them. So for example, if they're like simply like going to the grocery store, or like walking past like a library or whatever, they just, and if there's another person across the street like wearing a mask, they'll move a little farther, or these small racist things, as like they don't these are like racist actions, and they don't realize how xenophobic these things are. And like, and these are just small things that just add up, and they've created and even bigger things. Like the other day I was reading, like, there was this 5-year-old who got set on fire in New York City, and there was a Thai immigrant who was like spat on. And all these things are just like adding up, and they've only spiked since the pandemic.
Yeah,
And
no, I agree. And also, I feel like every time I read an article, I just surprise myself even more. Every time I see a headline or breaking news, this happened, breaking news, that happened, or every time I read a new article about these sort of problems, I just surprise myself even more about how ruthless and how mean people are towards, one race, and how,
Yeah, like,
it's just
why
so
pick
disgusting.
on a certain race? And some people use the excuse of ancestry. Like, what? That's not even like, that's the past.
there is no like excuse for racism. Like, you're racist or you're not. Like,
Literally zero.
there's like internalized racism. It's like it's just as simple as that, you know. And like, more specifically, I've just the like, I was just like reading the other day, and I was like curious on why were like people calling the COVID-19 the Chinese virus, because I'm like, what is the point of that? And so, and then I read about it, and then it said that like Donald Trump was one of the first people to call it the Chinese virus, which is not surprising, but like which it had like a domino effect, meaning like all his supporters then started to call the COVID-19 the Chinese virus, and it only multiplied after that. And I was just like reading that, like, it's just like the official name for this disease was deliberately chosen to avoid stigmatization and everything, and to make sure that that the other, like, this certain race is getting hurt, like to know that the certain race is getting hurt by you calling the Chinese virus, and despite that you're still calling it the Chinese virus, just says enough, you know. And like just knowing how much you're hurting people, not even emotionally, like even emotionally, just it's just as important as physical. Like there's evidence, like just search it up. You don't even have to search it up, just go and click on news and there'll be articles and articles of, you can swipe up, swipe down, there's just so many articles of people dying on the street because of the hate that has been caused because of these people. And it's just so unfortunate.
Yeah, and it's very easy to educate yourself and educate those, like, say they make a small racist remark about their eyes or how COVID has started because of Chinese people. Like, it's very easy to educate others, and at least try to. Of course, you're not always going to be able to get them to understand your side, but at least attempt to.
Yeah. Also, I want to bring up the point how Ishani mentioned how people are addressing the COVID-19 pandemic as the Chinese virus, and people have also been calling it the Wuhan virus, and just titleizing kind of a virus and giving it and discriminating an entire race for it. And I feel like a lot of people, they just choose to be racist because I don't know, they just want to be racist.
They feel like they're like superior to the other.
And also a lot of people, they look at their role models and they look above. Like, I feel like if parents are racist, their kids will also follow in their footsteps because that's how they've been raised. Or the president himself, or former president, he called it the Chinese virus, and like you said, Ishani, all his supporters started following. It's basically, I don't know, it's like a domino effect, who you follow and where you learn from.
Exactly. And so, like, which is why it's like so important that, like, from a certain age, like Melvina said, like in the beginning, like her little sister, like the fact that even the first time she experienced racism, she, like, how deeply it affected her. Like, if kids are young enough to experience racism, your kid is like old enough to learn about it and educate themselves on it. Like, there's like, of course, like there's like you can go into detail and everything, but being a good parent, I feel like you have to educate your kid about certain things, and they're only going to go down the right path if you let them go down to the right path. But like, because kids they're so heavily influenced by their parents, and they do what their parents say, or like Kavya said, like they look up to someone and they like look at them as perfect, and when you're at like young age, like when you're a teen and everything, your brain, it just like assumes that it's good, perfect, and you just go along with it, and you don't like think for another second, like, is this actually correct? And you don't dig deeper to actually like learn about certain things, and it's so important to do that sometimes. And which is why I feel like this podcast, we've directed it towards teens more specifically, because we're teens and we know what like it can sometimes do to you, like our brains and everything. And so if there are other teens listening to this, like, take a step back, even if they're like someone you look up to, like whoever it might be, like from sports games to like a president, like make sure that like don't blindly just follow someone, just make sure like you might agree with someone on certain things and disagree with someone on certain things. Like, you don't have to agree with them on everything, and just take the extra step to educate yourself.
I've read so many different articles, and I've read like about like these issues, and I remember reading one, and it just hasn't sat right with me, and I keep on thinking about the story over and over again, and I just wanted to talk about that. So basically, you guys probably heard about it. It's been like all over the news, but I just wanted to mention it in this podcast for people listening and just bringing it up for conversation. So basically, there was this Hispanic woman. She was around her 70s, I believe, and she was basically running errands and buying groceries for her daughter. And she was basically she was on her way, actually. She wasn't even in the store yet. She was on the bus on her way to the store. And a woman around her like 30s or mid 20s-ish, she started yelling slurs, and it didn't just go till there. She started punching her and physically harming this lady. And what bothered me so much? This woman, she wasn't even Asian. She was Hispanic, but she looked Asian, and the woman thought she was Asian, and she started saying, common like Asian, like slurs people call Asian people, and she was just being mean. And the bus driver and the people on the bus didn't even report this problem until that lady got off the bus. Like, while it was happening, nobody even stopped the lady from doing what she was doing. And what's even more disgusting? This 70-year-old woman that had to a lot of disabilities, making her recovery even harder. Like, she can barely walk now.
Oh my god. And even if she wasn't Asian, like, then none of this is okay,
Exactly.
And the fact that people, like, whoever these idiots are, like, doing, like, harassing these Asian Americans, the fact that they feel safe enough to attack these people, like, they feel safe enough in the community to attack these people, like, what is that about? Like,
how,
like, how can someone just be that, like, shallow, and not even shallow, just like that, like, this just dehumanizes just the human race, and it's just so sad to see, and that's why I think it's just so important to educate yourself.
Yeah, and the last story I read was about a 58-year-old, like, Vietnamese man. And I was, like, just scrolling through news, like, I was just reading through the news articles, and I found this on ABC 7 News, and basically he went out for a walk, like, just a walk, and he's 58 years old. So, and the police said that he was punched in the head from behind. And when he turned around, he literally saw a guy holding a baseball bat just staring at him. Like, bruh, this incident is just one example of so many other Asian descent falling victim to violent crimes, and this was in Chicago.
Yeah.
So, like, this is just one out of so many other incidents, and he was an old man too, and he was just going out for a walk. Now people can't even
like
go out
innocent
for a walk,
people. Like,
exactly.
I can't. It's just like you're going out for a simple walk, and you're just like wrapping your head. Like, I cannot imagine getting out of the house knowing that I might as well, like, lose my life today or get harassed. Like, exactly. I just cannot imagine what, like, people are going through. Like, even though, because we're people of color and we've experienced racism, like, at our school, and like, this is just a different extent, and it's just so, like, saddening.
And in fact, last year, like, Asian Americans, because of the COVID pandemic, they've experienced, like, a higher increase of, like, violent crimes perpetrated against them, like, compared to any other ethnic group. So
especially during this time.
And I read
God,
a 7% increase in the total violent crimes from just 2019 to 20. It's just,
oh my god,
exactly.
Which is why I think it's so important. Like, it's not enough to feel sad about it. It matters when you actually do something about it.
Exactly. And I feel like we read all of these headlines and we read all of these news articles, and we're not even in that direct situation, and we're wincing at what these other people are facing, and they're firsthand experiencing all of this blatant racism. Imagine how they feel. I can't even imagine, actually. Like,
just scared to go out for a walk. Like, my mother, she's literally scared for me to just go out for a walk. Of course, my struggles are nothing compared to theirs, but, well, not nothing, but we have different struggles, but it's
nothing's
like,
comparable. Like, they're all different, like, issues, and it's not something like we can compare to see which is worse. Like, all together, it's just bad.
And I just cannot, like, I just will never understand what is going through someone's mind when, especially, there are some people, like, who are not even Chinese. They're, like, say, Vietnamese or.
But I feel like that doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you're, like, whatever race you are. Like, the fact that
but this is just part of it. Like, they're mistaking other people, and even if you're mistaking someone else,
I don't think it's a mistake, Chinese. Though. I think that's the scary part. I don't think it's a mistake. I think they very well know. It's just they just want to. Which is the scary part, and I think,
with that being said, I think that we should end our podcast here for today.
I think that all of these matters, like, we have addressed them, and we should all take them very seriously because it's currently happening in our society and it's affecting people all around the world. And being ignorant about these topics won't help anyone, and we should take action.
Yeah, and also to further educate yourself, like we've mentioned in this podcast, please like go over into our Instagram, and we've made a post, and you can like check out that post, and we include multiple resources that you can click on and browse through to educate yourself on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess before we end, we're just going to talk about some things that you can do. So supporting Asian small businesses in your community, just to show your support that they're not going through this alone and that someone is supporting them.
Yeah, and even though I've emphasized this enough, educate yourself, Yeah. That being said, we'll be concluding our podcast here. Thank you for taking your time and listening.
And make
Have
sure
a
to
great
stay
day.
safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.